and welcome to EBA Day 2019 in Stockholm. I'm Hannah Wallace, and kindly joining me now in the TV studio is Clare Rhodes from Identitii, and we're going to be talking about ISO 20022. Hello Clare, thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
No problem at all. So yes, ISO 20022 is causing quite a stir at EBA Day. There's a lot of discussion around it. So what I'd love to hear from you first is what your take is on the migration and how banks are responding.
Yeah, there's certainly been a lot of discussion at the sessions. I think every session that we've been in this week has probably mentioned ISO 20022. And I think, there was initially some scepticism around was it going to happen and some hesitancy about it, but I think with all the looming deadlines, that's disappeared pretty much now. Europe with Target 2 and also the SWIFT coexistence period starting in 2021. The UK going in 2022, US in 2023, and Australia's even put out a paper now about consulting around its own migrations. And so I think that there's definitely the understanding that things need to move fairly quickly if we're going to meet all of those deadlines now.
All right, but coming to the risks, what do banks face if they're not ready in time for the deadline?
I think the biggest risk by far is around regulatory reporting obligations. FATF Recommendation 16, for example, requires that ultimate creditor and debtor information be transmitted throughout a payment if it's available. And if a bank's not able to accept that ISO payment message, it's more likely to translate it. And if it translates it, it's likely to go from a rich data format to a less rich data format, which means that data can fall out of the payment message. And once it's fallen out of that payment message, how do you then pick it back up again and transmit it down the line?
So you've mentioned the risks there, but what I'd like to hear from you now is how the industry is looking to meet those challenges.
For me, I think the decision really is based around legacy systems and how we plan to maintain data integrity throughout the payment process. We're looking at ISO 20022 as a way to get more data into payments, and that's obviously really important. What I think we also need to consider is how you maintain that data integrity and how you can inject even more data into that payment method. So not just necessarily the remittance information, clearing information or regulatory reporting information, but also settlement data. Because if a payment goes from one end to the other, that's excellent, the payment's worked. But what we need to think about then is, do we have enough information to settle that payment when it arrives in the corporate customer systems even? We see this as an opportunity to look beyond just the payment itself and to think about that end-to-end ecosystem for payments. How do you get invoices to travel with a payment? How do you get incorporation documents to travel with a payment? How do we make it easier to do complete straight-through processing from initiation to settlement? And for us, this is where blockchain can really play an important part. You've got the ability with blockchain to load information essentially up into the blockchain ecosystem and use this, we think, incredibly clever little token to permission access to that information on the blockchain, to share it with parties, whether it's within the bank, to corporate customers, even to regulators. We talk about it being a payments ecosystem for data, where really everyone who needs access to any of that structured or unstructured information can have access to it in a single portal, so to speak.
Well, Clare, you certainly painted the picture there, and it's an interesting point about blockchain too. Thank you so much for coming and sharing your insights.
Thanks for having me.